The phrase, "a poor craftsman blames his tools," or some variation of it anyway, is one you should be pretty familiar with. This phrase is meant to present the idea that some people will blame the things around them for their own shortcomings, often as a result of ego or lack of understanding of one's own abilities. And this neatly brings me along to Spy. People like to call Spy weak, and they like to blame all of their shortcomings on the things that Spy has available to him. But I think they're just wrong. I don't think Spy is weak, I just don't think you're playing him effectively. Now, to get into what I mean by that is actually a bit more complex than it might seem on the surface. Now, am I about to spend the rest of this video telling you that a class that was designed to function best when the enemy is not facing you and in melee range, in a first-person shooter no less, is a strong design? No, of course I'm not. But am I about to tell you that this translates to Spy being weak as a whole? Also no. I should also say that the TF2 mercs are so diverse in their movesets that there isn't a completely correct or incorrect way to play them. If you are playing Fat Scout, you're not playing Heavy wrong, you're just playing him a different way to what most people would normally do. But the fact that the game gives you the option to play Fat Scout if you want to, I think is really charming. So, what is this video? What is the point of it? Well, I'm going to be presenting to you some ideas for how you can play Spy more effectively. I'm also going to be pointing out various things that Spy can do that those who like to call him weak greatly underestimate the value of. As like I said earlier, there is no right and there is no wrong way to play Spy, but there definitely are things you can utilize in Spy's kit to make you more of an effective killer. So, why don't we go over some? Okay, so the first piece of advice I have you tried not getting caught? Like, I know it sounds really dumb, but have you truly tried to utilize everything Spy has in order to minimize the amount of times you are caught? You see, there's a thing about playing Spy which people just aren't ready to accept yet. Spy is supposed to die when he gets caught, and the whole point of playing Spy effectively is to not get caught. So when it comes to not being caught, there are two things you need to keep in mind: the tools available to you and your positioning. Spy has all of the tools in the world to try and avoid getting caught at any moment, but people don't utilize them properly and tend to default to using the same 3 ineffective tools for every scenario. There is no best knife for every scenario, there is no best watch for every scenario, there is no best disguise for every scenario. I've even made videos on this before. The depths have given you a solution for every problem, but you just have to figure out first what the problems are and then find the correct solution. So why don't we take a bit of a deeper look at those tools. Spy has 3 things available to him to help him avoid being caught. These are his invisibility watches, his disguise kit, and his movement speed. Now, there aren't actually many invisibility watches to talk about, with only 2 of them being tools to avoid being caught, and one of them being a get out of jail free card for when you are caught. Now, I personally believe that not being caught to begin with is a lot stronger than being caught and then running away. So if you are having trouble with being caught, why don't you put down the Dead Ringer and try one of the other 2 watches? And if your issue is that you continuously run out of cloak, well, we have some other tools to help us out with that. The next part of not being caught is disguises. People will say that disguises are only meant to be there so that you can get close to your targets to stab them. This is a narrow-minded approach to how Spy could be played. Instead of using your disguises to just get close to the enemy, try using them to avoid them as well. Try picking disguises that work best along the back lines instead of on the front lines. And remember where you currently are in relation to the enemy's barracks as well. Picking the sniper disguise for the 68th time whilst going towards the payload is never going to fool anyone. But if you take some time to learn where snipers normally lurk, and then play accordingly, I think you'll have a pretty good time. And the last of Spy's tools we have to utilize is his movement speed. Spy is tied for the 2nd fastest movement speed in the game. That is really strong, and people greatly undervalue the strength of that. Use your movement speed to outduke enemies in combination with your invisibility. Start your march in the most obvious pattern for where a Spy would normally go, but then divert immediately, leading the enemy to believe that you would continue up that path and therefore ultimately making it out with your life. Wow. All of that was part of 1/2 of one segment. I'm basically just trying to illustrate the point that people greatly undervalue the strength of all of these tools that Spy has to offer. There's strength in diversity when it comes to games like TF2. You're supposed to switch up your loadouts and your strategies depending on who you're fighting. And speaking of doing so, let's talk about the second half, positioning. And by positioning, I specifically am referring to your targets. As a Spy, you are most effective when picking off one target at a time. Payload stabs and all sorts of things like that can look very enticing and make for cool clip montages, but in reality, unless you kill absolutely everyone, you are going to be caught. and it is much easier to pick off one stray loning target than trying to kill 6 all at once. So, pick your targets wisely, use your tools that allow you to not be caught, to wait for the opportune moment to strike. And if you play your cards right and manage to catch your target when no one else is around, there would be no need for you to escape to begin with because no one else had seen you. Playing Spy like this can be very strong, but I also understand there are more fun ways to play Spy, which is why not many people choose to play him like this. But I personally think that this is one of the strongest strategies you can have when playing Spy, and I always recommend it to newer players specifically. It's good to build up that muscle memory before things go astray like with me. Okay, let's move on to another subject. When it comes to playing Spy, don't be greedy. I touched on this a little bit earlier when it came to payload stabs. Spy is a proper pick class. He is not a power class, and it's not a good idea to play him like one. Once you have got your stab, get out of there. Use everything that we just talked about to get your life out and keep yourself safe. Once you have got your key target, that's it, you've done your job, well done, now leave. This is one of the more common arguments I see for Spy being weak, and it's often in reference to the fact that his damage is limited to single targets. But not every situation requires AoE explosive damage, some situations require a more delicate and precise touch. Now, the last thing I want to touch on before this video ends is the idea of Reconnaissance. Being able to perform callouts is probably stronger than Spy's ability to actually get kills. As you see, let's take a look at the name of the game for a second. It's called Team Fortress 2, it's not called You Fortress 2. If you are in an available position to let your team know what the enemy team is up to at any time, you probably should. Spy has all of the tools available to him to pass on this information. This includes obviously your invisibility watches, but also your ability to see enemy health and take enemy teleporters. So, every now and then, take a glance at the key target's health and just report it in chat. Make sure to use the team chat function though, because otherwise the enemy team will know that your team knows that their team knows what their health is, and calling information out like this in the non-team specific chat is pretty much the equivalent of getting caught. Anyway, I think that's all I really have to share with you for now. This video was initially going to be something quite different, yet I think I'm going to split the project into two. The tips I've given you in this video were initially part of a larger context as a whole, as the initial video involved me taking the most common arguments for Spy being weak, and then talking about why I don't personally subscribe to them. But amongst that 30-minute project, I found about 8 minutes worth of tips, and so I've compiled them into this video. And the main overarching philosophy for my channel is that I make the kind of content I want to watch, and I don't really want to watch a 30-minute video. Who knows, if this video is poorly received, then maybe I will release the larger project as a whole. Thank you once again to Dynamar for the thumbnail render. You can find his Twitter account linked down in the description below. And apart from that, another personal thank you for me and an apology that it's been a while since my last proper video, and I will see you later down the sunny road.